I thought it was going to be a normal Saturday morning. You know the kind, birds chirping, sprinklers running, and the faint smell of someone's pancakes drifting through the neighborhood. I walked out to my garage, coffee in hand, just planning to grab the lawnmower for a quick trim. Nothing dramatic, nothing exciting. Just me, my garage, and a beautiful sunny day. But of course, it couldn't be that simple. I lifted the garage door slowly, the kind of cautious lift you do when you're not entirely sure the old spring is going to cooperate. And that's when I saw her, Karen. Karen from next door, HOA president extraordinaire, rule enforcer of the neighborhood, and self-appointed chief of everyone's business. She was standing at the edge of my driveway, phone in hand, eyes wide like she had just seen a crime scene straight out of a Netflix thriller. "Stop," she screamed, "someone's stealing my car." I froze mid-lift, coffee halfway to my lips, blinking at her like she had just told me aliens were landing on my roof. At first, I laughed. Surely this had to be a joke. Maybe she was filming some ridiculous TikTok stunt or testing my reaction for a neighborhood gossip blog. But no, the sheer seriousness in her voice told me this was very real and very Karen. I tried to explain, raising my hands slowly like a hostage negotiator. "Karen, it's your car, it's right there, nothing's moving." Her eyes didn't even flick toward her car, instead she waved her phone frantically. "I saw it, someone's taking it, I'm calling 911. My stomach dropped. 911, over a car in the driveway. I had to remind myself to breathe. This was not normal. This was peak HOA Karen, a level of overreaction I didn't even know existed. I tried reasoning. "Karen, seriously, your car is fine. You parked it there yesterday, you." "I know what I saw," she shouted, cutting me off mid-word. "You think I'm crazy, but you're the one hiding it. Everyone's going to see this." And just like that, she was on the phone, yelling something about a stolen vehicle and a suspicious man in a garage. I watched her, half in disbelief, half wanting to laugh, but more than anything, I knew I had to keep my cool, because this was about to get wild. Within moments, I could hear the faint sound of sirens in the distance. My quiet morning, which had started with birds and coffee, was about to be replaced with flashing lights and questions I wasn't prepared to answer. I peeked out from behind the garage door, hoping maybe this was some misunderstanding that would resolve itself. Nope. Karen was already narrating the crime scene to the dispatcher like she was auditioning for a reality show. I tried to take a deep breath, reminding myself of all the HOA rules I had carefully avoided breaking. But apparently lifting a garage door was now a federal-level offense if Karen thought her property was at risk. My mind raced. Should I slowly put the lawnmower back? Should I just run inside and hope she called someone else first? I felt trapped between absurdity and danger, and somehow Karen was standing right in the middle of it like a general in a battle I didn't even know I was fighting. Neighbors started peeking out their windows, probably trying to figure out if they were going to witness a genuine crime or just another installment in the ongoing saga of Karen's neighborhood theatrics. Dogs barked, birds flew away, and I, your friendly innocent homeowner, stood in my driveway holding a coffee mug, wondering how my simple garage lift had turned into what was now clearly an event worthy of 911 and a neighborhood crowd. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to be over quickly. Karen had made her call and there was no going back. The sirens were closer now, the tension rising like the temperature in a pressure cooker, and I had only one thought: how did a Saturday morning become the most dramatic HOA episode of my life? Little did I know this was just part one. The real chaos had yet to arrive. Before I could even finish my half-hearted protest, the wail of sirens cut through the quiet morning like a knife. Red and blue lights flashed across my driveway, bouncing off the garage door and making everything look like a scene from some low-budget crime show. I froze mid-step, coffee mug in hand, feeling like the main character in a story I didn't audition for. Two police cars screeched to a halt, tires squealing on the pavement. Officers jumped out, eyes scanning the scene. One looked at me, the other at Karen, who was practically vibrating with excitement and fear at the same time. She pointed at me like I was a notorious criminal. "He's taking my car, right now, I saw him," she yelled, waving her arms like a conductor of chaos. The officers approached cautiously, radios crackling, trying to piece together what was happening. I raised my hands, trying to show I wasn't a threat. "Ma'am," one officer said politely, "can you tell me what's going on?" Karen spun around, ignoring him completely. "He's stealing my car, he's manipulating it." She jabbed a finger at the garage door. "I saw him moving it, you have to stop him." I blinked. "Moving it? It hasn't moved since yesterday." I opened my mouth to explain, but Karen wasn't letting me get a word in. The officer looked from her to me, clearly trying to decide if he had just stumbled into a weird sitcom or an actual crime. Meanwhile, neighbors were stepping out of their houses, curious. Kids started whispering and pointing, some filming on their phones. I swear I heard one kid shout, "OMG, is he a thief?" Like I had suddenly become the villain in the neighborhood's ongoing drama series. I tried again, calmer this time. Sir, I'm the homeowner. Her car is exactly where she left it. I lifted my garage door to get my lawnmower, that's it. Karen scoffed loudly. That's exactly what a thief would say. You think I'm naive? She held her phone up like a weapon. He's dangerous. I felt my eyebrows shoot up. Dangerous? Really? All I'd done was lift a garage door and survive HOA meetings. I looked at the officers, hoping they could see how absurd this was. One of them gave me a side-eye glance like, yeah, I see your problem. As they tried to separate Karen from me, she kept screaming, waving, and calling me every name in the HOA handbook. It was like watching someone perform a one-person theater production. I wanted to step back, sip my coffee, and laugh, but I knew one wrong move and it would look suspicious. Then the first officer leaned toward Karen. Ma'am, can you step back and calm down? Let's check the car. Karen gasped, clutching her pearls like I had just threatened her very soul. Step back. Do you know who I am? You think I'm wrong about this? He's hiding it, I know it. I sighed inwardly. At this point, I realized I wasn't dealing with just a neighbor. I was dealing with a fully committed high-level Karen. She had trained her whole life to escalate situations like this, and now she had 2 police officers on her side, at least in theory. One of the officers finally stepped up to the car. Slowly, he circled it, lifting a hand and peering inside. Nothing, no movement, no thief, no evidence. Just Karen's perfectly parked sedan gleaming in the morning sun. He nodded to me and I almost felt relief wash over me, but Karen wasn't done. She stomped her foot like a general refusing to admit defeat. You're just protecting him, everyone knows the HOA rules. I tried to explain, using the last ounce of my patience. Karen, lifting my garage door is not a crime. I didn't touch your car, I'm not moving anything. Look around, it's exactly where you left it. For a second, it seemed like reason might break through, then she spotted a neighbor filming. See, everyone's watching, he's dangerous, he's plotting something. I realized in that moment, this wasn't just about the garage or the car anymore. This was now a full-scale neighborhood drama, with me as the unwitting lead, Karen as the director, and the police as very confused supporting characters. And just like that, the calm Saturday morning I had planned was gone. The sun was shining, birds were still chirping, but my life had officially become a live-action HOA thriller. Little did I know this was only part 2. Things were about to get even more chaotic and a lot more ridiculous. By now, I had fully accepted that my quiet Saturday was officially over. The police were on the scene, Karen was shrieking at the top of her lungs, and neighbors were gathering like it was some kind of free street performance. Honestly, I half expected someone to sell popcorn. Karen wasn't just standing there, she was practically bouncing with excitement, or was it fury? Hard to tell. He's hiding it, she yelled again, pointing frantically at my garage. I saw him moving my car, you have to arrest him. I stepped forward, holding my hands up like a peace ambassador. Karen, there is no car being moved. Nothing is happening, look. I gestured to her pristine sedan, gleaming in the morning sun, untouched, perfectly parked. She ignored me, of course she did. Instead, she jabbed a finger at me and shouted, You think you can fool everyone? I know what I saw. Everyone will know he's dangerous. I sighed, dangerous. I have a toolbox, a lawnmower, and apparently now the ability to terrify HOA presidents. The officers tried to intervene. Sir, please step back and stay calm, one said, giving me a look that said, good luck with this one. I nodded, keeping my hands visible, but inside I was panicking just enough to keep my brain sharp. Karen wasn't going to stop, not until she felt vindicated. Then she did something I didn't expect. She started walking around my driveway, inspecting my garage, pointing at random tools, muttering to herself. He's tampering, look at that, he's hiding something. I blinked, tampering with what exactly? I asked, trying to keep my tone calm, though it was impossible not to let a little sarcasm slip in. Karen didn't answer. She was too busy waving at the gathering neighbors, making her case louder and louder. I glanced around. People were filming, whispering, some nodding like they were watching a high-stakes thriller unfold. At that moment, I realized I had 2 options. Escalate and argue, which would make me look guilty, or try humor, which might make Karen angrier but could also calm the tension. I chose the first line of defense, humor. Karen, I said, if I was stealing your car, do you think I'd bother lifting my own garage door first? That's not exactly the most discreet method. She froze for half a second, then shouted, You think this is funny? My car could have been gone. And that's when the officers decided to check her claim more thoroughly. One circled the car, tapping the hood, looking for fingerprints. Another looked inside. Nothing, zero, nada. Karen's car was perfectly safe. I could almost see the mental gears grinding in the officers' heads. This wasn't criminal, this was insane. Karen, of course, didn't see it that way. She started packing, muttering to herself, throwing in phrases like HOA rules and community safety, as if invoking the almighty HOA would somehow make her claims valid. I tried again, keeping my tone calm but firm. Karen, you're causing a scene. The car is fine, I'm fine, everyone is fine, please just stop before this gets worse. But she wasn't done. She turned dramatically toward the neighbors, arms wide, like she was giving a speech at some kind of award ceremony for righteousness. Look at him, look what he's doing in broad daylight. This is why we need rules. This is why I run the HOA. And just like that, the neighborhood spectacle hit a new level. Phones raised, whispers spread. I realized that this wasn't just about her car anymore. It was about power, ego, and making sure everyone remembered Karen was in charge. I took a deep breath. There had to be a way to end this without letting Karen's overreaction ruin my life. But every step I took, every word I said seemed to fuel the fire. I felt trapped in my own driveway, the unwitting protagonist of a suburban nightmare that could only exist in one place, the HOA universe. And as I stood there, surrounded by flashing lights, murmuring neighbors, and a Karen who refused to back down, I realized one terrifying truth. The real drama hadn't even started yet. Because in HOA conflicts, once someone calls 911, the rules change. By now, my quiet morning had completely transformed into a full-blown neighborhood spectacle. Red and blue lights flashed across the driveway, neighbors peeked out from windows and lawns, and Karen had clearly forgotten what calm even meant. She wasn't just upset anymore. She was on a mission, fully convinced I was a criminal mastermind hiding in plain sight. The officer trying to mediate took a deep breath and said, "Ma'am, can we just take a step back? Let's check if there's any real problem here." Karen spun around, glaring like he had just insulted her personally. "Step back, he's dangerous, you think I'm wrong, everyone saw him." At that moment, I felt like screaming, "You saw him? He's standing in front of you holding a coffee mug." But I stayed calm. Calm was my only weapon besides my wit, which I planned to unleash carefully. I tried reasoning one more time. "Karen, look at the car. It's exactly where you left it yesterday. Nothing has been stolen, nothing has been moved. The garage is mine. I lifted the door to get my lawnmower and that's it." She ignored me completely. Classic Karen. Instead, she started packing, muttering phrases like HOA violation, community safety, and this won't stand, like she was reciting a sacred mantra. The crowd of neighbors was growing. Phones were raised, some whispering, others recording every second. One kid shouted, "Is he going to jail?" I wanted to crouch behind my lawnmower, but no, I had to face it. My driveway had officially become the stage of Karen's personal drama, and I was the unwitting star. Then Karen did something I didn't expect. She started interrogating the police officers. "Do you realize what he's capable of? Lifting the garage like that is suspicious. How do you know he's not hiding something dangerous inside?" I bit back a laugh. Dangerous? My most dangerous item was a slightly rusty leaf blower. I held my coffee mug like a shield, trying to look harmless but competent. One officer, clearly tired of the theatrics, said calmly, "Ma'am, we've inspected the car. Nothing has been stolen and nothing appears suspicious." Karen, however, was having none of it. "You're being fooled. He's cunning, sneaky. Do you know how these people think? I've seen the signs. This is exactly how crimes start in a quiet neighborhood like ours." I glanced at the other officer. He gave me the same look I'd gotten before. Good luck explaining this without making her angrier. I realized that no amount of proof or logic would sway Karen now. She had gone full 911 mode, and the officers were just observers in her personal theater of paranoia. Then, to my horror and amusement, she turned to the neighbors and started narrating everything in a booming voice as if she were giving a TED talk about me. "He lifted the garage. He must be hiding my car. He could have done anything in there and we would never know. This is why we need rules." At this point, I had to remind myself not to roll my eyes. The situation was absurd, and everyone watching seemed to be eating it up like it was the finale of a reality show. I tried another tactic, humor. "Karen," I said carefully, "if I was stealing your car, do you really think I'd announce it by lifting my garage door? That's not subtle." She froze as if my words had struck some kind of nerve, then screamed, "Don't mock me, you think this is funny." And there it was, the perfect storm of HOA insanity. I had a neighbor convinced of a non-existent crime, a growing audience, and police officers trying to keep the peace while I stood there, caught between laughter and frustration. I could feel my morning slipping away entirely. Birds still chirped. The sun still shone. But in my driveway, a suburban drama of epic proportions was unfolding and I was trapped right in the middle of it. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, Karen's next move made it clear this wasn't just about the car anymore. She was calling in reinforcements, the HOA itself. That's when I realized part 4 wasn't just a continuation, it was the escalation, and if I survived it, I would have stories to tell for years. By now, it wasn't just Karen versus me. Somehow my quiet Saturday had become a full-scale neighborhood event. Windows opened, lawns filled with curious neighbors, and phones were raised on every corner, recording every moment like I was staring in the latest viral video. I felt like I'd accidentally signed up for a reality show and no one told me the rules. Karen was in her element. She pointed at me, waving her arms like a conductor, narrating the scene to anyone who would listen. "He's dangerous. He's moving my car right now. I can't believe the police aren't arresting him." I tried to step forward, raising my hands in peace. "Karen, it's still exactly where you left it. No one is moving anything. Can we just—" "Shut up," she shouted, cutting me off mid-sentence. "You're lying. I know what I saw. You're manipulating everything." One neighbor, holding a phone like a mini stage light, whispered to another, "Do you think he's actually stealing it?" I wanted to sink into the ground. My coffee mug felt heavy, as if the weight of everyone's judgment had suddenly doubled. Another neighbor came closer, tilting her head like she was about to interview me. "Are you sure it's safe?" she asked cautiously. I smiled weakly. "Safe? Absolutely, there's nothing happening. I just lifted my garage door, that's it." Karen, of course, ignored this entirely. She had found a tiny smudge on her car's bumper, probably a bug or a water spot, and declared it proof of tampering. She leaned in, pointing dramatically. "See that? He's clearly been here. You can't lie to me." The officers exchanged looks. I swear, one of them rolled his eyes so hard it almost made a sound. Meanwhile, Karen's live commentary continued. "This is exactly why we have rules. This is exactly why HOA oversight exists. Everyone pay attention." I tried humor again because it seemed like the only way to survive. "Karen," I said carefully, "if I were trying to steal your car, I think I would have at least used a different garage, or maybe a tow truck." She froze, gaping at me like I'd just insulted her entire family tree. Then she started packing again, muttering, "You think you're clever, don't you? You think you can hide things in broad daylight." At this point, even some neighbors couldn't help but chuckle. Kids snickered behind their parents, and one teenager whispered, "Man, Karen's going full superhero mode." I had to bite my lip to stop laughing myself. But the tension wasn't gone. Karen's ego and fear had fused into something unstoppable. She turned to the gathering crowd. "Watch closely, everyone. This is how criminals operate. He's hiding things in plain sight." I took a step back, surveying the scene. There were probably 20 people now, leaning over fences, standing on lawns, filming and whispering. The officers were clearly trying to maintain control, but even they looked like they were struggling not to laugh at the absurdity of it all. I realized something crucial. Karen's perception had transformed the situation. What was a simple misunderstanding had become a full-blown neighborhood event, and no matter what I said, the narrative she had built in her head and broadcast to everyone was already spinning out of control. Then came the moment I hadn't expected. A neighbor I didn't even know stepped up, clearly emboldened by Karen's theatrics. "Are you sure he's not dangerous?" she asked, nodding toward me. I raised my coffee mug in mock salute. "Absolutely sure. I've been very bad at hiding, if that helps." Karen gasped, clutching her chest. "See, even he's admitting it. He's confessing. You all saw it." I sighed. Birds chirped, sprinklers still ran, and I stood in my driveway thinking, how did lifting a garage door become the most dramatic event in this neighborhood's history? And yet, deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen had only just started. The officers were patient, the neighbors were entertained, and Karen's ego untouchable. I took another deep breath, bracing myself for the next round. Because if I thought part 5 was chaotic, the real chaos, the HOA escalation, was coming next. By this point, I was questioning my life choices. Birds were still chirping, sprinklers still hissed in the background, and yet my driveway had become ground zero for what could only be described as suburban chaos. Karen was on her megaphone, phone, still narrating to 911 and to the growing audience of neighbors, insisting that I was hiding her car in my garage like it was a secret treasure. I decided to try a different tactic. Evidence, proof, logical demonstration. Surely, if I calmly showed that her car was exactly where she had parked it, she would relent. I stepped toward her sedan, hands raised. "Karen, the car is literally right here. Look at it. Nothing has moved. No one has touched it. See." She squinted at it, shook her head, and waved me off. You're lying, you're trying to trick me, you think I'm blind. I blinked, blind. No, Karen was clearly seeing everything but interpreting it through a lens of paranoia. I tried again. Ma'am, you parked it yesterday, nothing has been taken, I'm not hiding anything. Karen's eyes narrowed. You're gaslighting me, that's exactly what a criminal would say. You think you can fool everyone in this neighborhood, but I see everything. The police officers were slowly losing patience. One officer stepped closer and said, Ma'am, we've inspected the car. There's no evidence of theft. Nothing suspicious has happened. Can we calm down? Karen turned to him, eyes blazing. Calm down, you don't understand. He's cunning, he's dangerous. And if you don't act, he could. She stopped herself mid-sentence, realizing she was practically screaming in the middle of a quiet suburban street. I could barely contain my amusement. Dangerous? I was holding a coffee mug. The only danger I posed was possibly cracking a joke. Still, Karen wasn't done. She crouched slightly, pointing at a tiny smudge on her car's bumper. This proves it. He's been here, you see? Proof. I walked over, trying not to laugh. I bent down, inspected the spot, and looked at the officers. That's a bug, or maybe a raindrop, definitely not proof of a conspiracy. Karen gasped like I had personally insulted her. Don't mock me, this is serious, you're all complicit in his crime. The crowd was growing. Some neighbors whispered to each other, some laughed quietly, and one brave soul muttered, Is this really happening? I realized in that moment that Karen's drama had fully hijacked the neighborhood narrative. What was a simple misunderstanding had become a public spectacle. I was now the villain in her story, the shadowy criminal threatening the peace of the entire block. The officer gave me a discreet look. This is above our pay grade. I nodded subtly, thinking the same thing. Karen, meanwhile, wasn't slowing down. She stomped around the driveway, muttering about HOA rules, community safety, and how criminals operate in plain sight. She pointed at my garage, her phone, her neighbors, basically anything in the vicinity. I tried humor one last time. Karen, if I were really stealing your car, do you think I'd make it so obvious? Lifting my garage door right out in the open. She froze as if my words had cut through her carefully constructed narrative, then screamed, Don't mock me, this is serious. And then came the final straw. She pulled out a printed HOA pamphlet and waved it like a banner of victory. I'm reporting this, you will answer to the HOA for this. My heart sank, the officers were patient, the neighbors were entertained, but Karen had escalated things to a whole new level. The HOA wasn't just a set of rules, they were a force, a potential army, and now I was in their crosshairs. I glanced at the car, at Karen, at the crowd, and realized something vital. Part 6 was the turning point. The proof was on my side, yes, but Karen's ego and determination had transformed the situation from simple misunderstanding into full-blown HOA drama. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Whatever happened next, I knew I had to navigate the chaos carefully, because once the HOA got involved, things weren't just absurd, they could get really, really complicated. And with that, I braced for the next round. Karen had fired the first shot, now it was time to see how far she was willing to go. I thought the drama had peaked when Karen called 911s. I was wrong, dead wrong. By mid-morning, a white minivan with the HOA logo rolled up to my street. Out stepped the HOA representative, clipboard in hand, looking like a referee who had been summoned to officiate a game that had already gotten wildly out of control. Karen waved at her like she was signaling the cavalry, and I realized the full weight of HOA bureaucracy was about to descend on me. The representative approached cautiously. Good morning, she said, trying to sound professional. We received a report that you may have tampered with a neighbor's property. I blinked. Tampered. I lifted my garage door. That was it. My coffee mug was now a weapon of self-defense. Ma'am, I did not tamper with anything. I just opened my own garage to get my lawnmower, that's all. Karen interjected immediately. He's lying, he's dangerous, he's clearly hiding something. I demand HOA action immediately. The representative scribbled notes furiously, nodding politely. I could tell she was trying to stay neutral, but Karen's intensity made it clear she was running this investigation her way. Neighbors had gathered in a semicircle by now, cameras out, whispers floating around. I felt like I was trapped in the middle of a suburban courtroom drama with no judge in sight. Karen didn't stop there. She pulled out a printed copy of the HOA rulebook and waved it like a sword. Look at this, Section 4, Paragraph 7, no homeowner shall tamper with a neighbor's property or vehicles. He lifted the garage, that is tampering, he must be fined. I raised my hands in exasperation. Karen, I didn't touch your car, the car is fine, the garage is mine, this is insane. She gasped, clutching the rulebook to her chest. You dare speak to me like that? The HOA will enforce the rules and you will pay. I realized the situation had officially escalated beyond comedy. We were now in full HOA territory, official threats, paperwork, and potential fines. My brain raced. How could I possibly convince the HOA that lifting my garage door did not constitute a crime against suburban order? The representative finally spoke up. Sir, ma'am, can we take a step back? Let's inspect the property and clarify the situation before making any judgments. Karen's face fell. This wasn't going fast enough for her. Inspect, you don't understand, the danger is right now, look at him, he's unpredictable. I held my coffee mug like a shield, trying to stay calm. At this point I was half amused, half panicked, wondering if anyone else had ever survived a Karen-driven HOA escalation. We walked toward the car, I pointed again, keeping my voice calm. It's exactly where she parked it, nothing's missing, nothing has moved, I did not touch it, I'm not hiding anything. The HOA representative nodded, scribbling notes. Karen, however, had escalated further. She was packing, muttering to herself, pointing at my garage, my coffee mug, even random leaves on the lawn. You see, he could have done anything in there, he's a threat. This is exactly why we need HOA rules. Neighbors were now fully invested. Some whispered, some laughed quietly, and one bold teenager muttered, "This is insane." I couldn't help but agree internally. Then came the final twist. Karen demanded I sign a compliance acknowledgement, essentially admitting guilt for a crime I hadn't committed. I stared at the paper, incredulous. I'm supposed to sign what? Karen's eyes blazed. You know what this is, don't play dumb, you'll face fines, penalties, and possibly community service. I realized in that moment, Part 7 was the climax. The HOA had officially entered the chaos, Karen had her ego fully unleashed, and the neighbors were hanging on every second. I had to think fast, or I would be trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare fueled entirely by one woman's overreaction. I squared my shoulders, looked Karen in the eye, and prepared my response. This wasn't just about a garage or a car anymore. It was about surviving Karen, surviving the HOA, and somehow keeping my sanity intact. And as the representative looked between us, I knew the final showdown was imminent. Whatever happened next would determine the rest of the neighborhood saga and whether Karen could ever be satisfied. I could feel the tension in the air like static electricity. Karen had the HOA fully engaged, neighbors were still filming, and I was standing there holding a coffee mug like some suburban hostage. At this point, I wondered if I should have just stayed in bed. The HOA representative, clipboard still in hand, finally spoke. Sir, we've inspected the property. The car is exactly where it was yesterday. There is no evidence of tampering. No rules have been violated. I blinked, half in disbelief, half in relief. Finally, reason had made its way into the chaos, or so I thought. Karen's face twisted into pure fury. What? That's impossible. He's hiding something. I felt it. Everyone saw him acting suspiciously. One of the officers, who had clearly had enough of this circus, muttered under his breath, Lady, there's nothing here. Karen turned on him, eyes wide. You can't dismiss this, you're supposed to enforce the law. I took a deep breath. Humor, my last weapon, had to be deployed carefully. Karen, I said calmly, I didn't steal your car, I didn't hide anything, and lifting my garage door apparently causes more drama than a Hollywood blockbuster. Maybe we can all calm down now. The representative nodded, scribbling final notes. Sir is correct, no rules were broken, this matter is closed unless new evidence appears. Karen gasped like someone had just insulted her entire life. Closed? No, this isn't closed, he needs to be held accountable, he. At that moment, a small group of neighbors started clapping, others laughed quietly. Someone shouted, Karen, chill, it's a garage door, not a heist. Karen's face turned red. I swear she was vibrating with rage, but the representative stepped in firmly. Ma'am, the HOA has reviewed the situation. Your report has been noted, but no further action is required. The neighborhood rules have been followed. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The threat of fines, penalties, and endless paperwork was gone. For now, sanity had been restored, at least on paper. Karen, however, was not ready to accept defeat. She huffed, muttered something about justice, and stomped back toward her house, still waving the HOA pamphlet like a sword of moral victory. I watched her go, half impressed, half terrified. That level of dedication to chaos was, well, unmatched. Neighbors began to disperse, some still whispering and laughing, others shaking their heads. The officers left, giving me a look that said, "Good luck with your next Saturday." I picked up my coffee mug and took a cautious sip, finally feeling like I could breathe again. I glanced at my garage door. It was just a garage door. It hadn't caused drama on its own. But paired with Karen, oh boy, that combination was enough to turn an ordinary morning into a full-blown suburban disaster movie. Later, when I recounted the story to my friends, they laughed until tears streamed down their faces. "You survived, Karen?" one of them asked. "That's heroic." I shrugged. I survived, barely, and learned an important lesson: never underestimate the power of an HOA president with imagination, determination, and a flair for the dramatic. Karen, she probably went back inside and told anyone who would listen that she had almost single-handedly stopped a criminal in our midst. In her mind, justice had been served, even if the rest of us knew the truth. As for me, I finally mowed the lawn, brewed another cup of coffee, and stared at my garage door. A simple lift had almost caused a neighborhood war, and yet somehow it all felt worth it. Because surviving Karen, the police, the HOA, and an entire street of onlookers, that deserved a victory sip of coffee and a little private laugh. And that's how a normal Saturday morning turned into the most dramatic, ridiculous, and strangely entertaining HOA episode of my life. The moral: never underestimate how far one neighbor will go when rules, ego, and a perceived crime collide. And maybe, just maybe, keep your coffee mug close at hand. You never know when it'll be the only thing standing between you and chaos. Every HOA has a story on HOA headaches. You'll hear the ones they tried to bury. Subscribe today.